Sometimes people walk into my studio and they see all the records and collectibles and stuff, and they're like, oh, you must be sitting on a fortune. Not sure. I don't know how that's going to play out. But anyways, I wanted to talk a little bit today about, thinking of music as an investment rather than just listening for enjoyment and things like that. I certainly would do the latter. I don't think you should think of your records as an investment. Here's why. Hey guys, welcome to the show. I made a video a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, about record shows kind of being finished and seeing things changing within record shows and collectible shows in general. And a lot of you agreed with me. A lot of you chimed in on the comments and said, "Yep, this is exactly how we're feeling as well. Things are getting a little bit strange within the hobby." I've got another bold prediction to make today, and I think it's going to maybe be controversial for some people, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And again, this is just my thoughts. It's not based on any actual research, really. It's just my thoughts as a collector that's been a long-time collector of things. I'm going to say if you're going to invest in records and collectibles in general, you've got a shelf life to this and a window that is getting smaller and smaller every year. And I'm going to explain that a little bit on the show today and kind of give you my thoughts on why I think you probably shouldn't invest in records. Okay, the first thing I want to address with this topic is the idea of the internet has created in all forms of collectibles a one-price system. Once something sells, you have an established value, and once that happens, even a grandma at a yard sale can figure out the value of what they have in front of them. And I think that makes it very hard to score something really good. And so you're going to be paying retail at a yard sale, a thrift store, wherever you go. And the main culprit for a lot of this is Discogs when it comes to vinyl records. Of course, Discogs has become the main price used by shops for used vinyl. It's used at record shows and record fairs and things like that. It's used on Facebook Marketplace for people to sell things privately. Discogs has become the market value. What Discogs doesn't show you is any sale outside of Discogs. So we only have Discogs reporting to themselves and setting a price. But that doesn't take into account eBay. It doesn't certainly take into account any of the private sales that are going on, cash deals and things like that. So record show sales and all that. So the pricing is skewed right from the start, but we use Discogs because we can't possibly know the price of every record out there, and everybody is afraid of being ripped off or ripping themselves off when they're selling something. So this has become the standard and the norm, and it didn't used to be like this. So you would be able to use your knowledge to actually obtain a rare, valuable record and do well on it and actually say, okay, I've found something there of value. I didn't pay what it's worth, and whatever. A lot of records that collectors are looking for are simply too expensive. And so if you did have that record go up for sale, it may not be an easy sell right away. And so I'll kind of explain this a little further, but the first thing I see with the problem in investing in vinyl is that really we've got a one-price system. The prices are already established. So how do you buy something, invest in it, and then profit on it? Now, before I go any further, yes, it's about the music. Yes, it's about collecting artists and bands that you really like to listen to and having that physical format. One of the biggest attractions to vinyl for me is the historical element of it, that you're owning the original release that came out in 1955 or 1968 or whatever it might be. You've got this physical piece of history that you now own and can take part in. And I am very much attracted to that side of collecting records. It's probably one of the main reasons that I do. So for me, no, it's not entirely about money, but at the same time, if I'm going to pay for something, and it is a lot of money, then I want to know that that's going to be a price that I'm going to get out of it at some point. I don't want to lose on that down the road. So there's a couple of things to think about there. So that's the first thing I wanted to address, the one price system. Okay, point number 2 I'd like to make is us collectors, and I assume if you're watching this video, you're probably a collector of something, whether it's records or whatever it is. When we collect something and we spend time on a hobby and research, and we prepare almost checklists for stuff to look for, and you go out and hunt for it and things like that, you automatically kind of assume you're a part of this big community, because online we have other people that are sharing the same ideas, and you can kind of go, oh, they're like me, they sort of connect with me. But if you think about it, worldwide, it's a very small number of people that actually care about this at all. And if you even go in your hometown, wherever you live, my hometown's not very big, but if you even lived in a place twice the size of where I live, you might find it hard to find another collector on the same scale as yourself. So there might only be 10 or 15 people in my whole county where I live that collect on the scale that I do. Now, that's not very many. And most people, if we took a survey of people walking down the main street of the town and just sort of said, how many records are you buying this month? Most of them are going to say 0. And most of them are going to say, I don't collect records. And this is the same for every type of collectible, whether it's comic books or sports cards or instruments or whatever it is. You're going to find that every type of collectible is a niche market. And so when you go to sell things at some point, and everybody does need to downsize at some point for the most part, you will find that finding buyers is not as easy as you might think, because you're competing with not only a small population of people who are actually interested, but now with the internet and the ability to ship all over the world, you're actually competing against the world. So if you have a very kind of average record, run-of-the-mill, let me just see if I can pull one. Okay, here's a great example. John Fogerty. Good record. Is it worth $5? Maybe less. If I went to list this record online, would it sell? Probably not. Does it actually have value? Maybe if I threw it out in a $5 bin at a yard sale or on Marketplace or something, maybe I'd get it. But are there, is people going to be knocking down my door to get this record? No. So this is where you have to look at your collection and just say, okay, how much of this is actually something that other people would want, and can you find that audience? Another thing that affects people when it comes to investing in records is understanding condition, and I am not crazy picky about condition, but some people are. And if you have a big deal record and you're trying to sell it, you will find that the better the condition, the better obviously you're going to do on it, but that you better be very careful how you word things when you're listing this. So to show you an example, I have an original, this is a 1967 pressing of the Jimi Hendrix Experience. It's actually a very rare true first pressing in Canada on the black Reprise label, before it was the rainbow label. This is a really rare record. Now, the sleeve though, on the back, has some damage up here. This drastically affects the price of this. Do I care? Not really, because I just like owning something original and rare like this. But somebody would really care about this, and if I go to sell this record, that's going to be a major mark against it. Now, the actual vinyl is pretty good, and I'd say it's a strong VG+, which for 1967 is pretty fair. But that cover and that sleeve damage, on the front it looks good, is going to affect the value, and you have to kind of know that going in. So just because you have something that is on the surface rare and unique, condition can really play into that, and to kind of see where you're at with the price, you have to think about condition. So if you're investing in records, condition is very, very important. And another point I'd like to make about Discogs is it feels really good to input this in and then check the value of your collection. You think, oh wow, and look at this. I've got, even at the low end on my collection right now, I've got $25,000. The median is $62,000, and at the high end I've got a $169,000 collection. And it sort of makes our egos feel good. But realistically, if I listed the entire collection and I put it at the minimum, if I just listed it one bulk sale, $25,000, do you think anybody would come and buy it? Probably not. And that is the problem. And that's where, if you're going to unload your collection, I don't know if you would get even the minimum. So what's the point? What's the point in having that kind of, I guess, system and value to things? It's very strange to me. So if you're going to try to sell your entire collection, and if somebody came in and offered me $25,000, like, I would really have to consider that. I probably would do that. So it's it's a difficult thing to figure out and a hard thing to understand and to know where you're at with it. But the one thing about investing is if you are going to sell your record collection in bulk, be prepared to get hammered on that and just to be absolutely undervalued and underpaid for what you have here. It's not feasible for a lot of shops to go and drop that kind of money, which is going to take years of return to get back. So you're really kind of stuck with trying to parcel things out individually or in small lots and things like that, maybe per band or per artist. And that's the best way. But sometimes having this great value, it's good for insurance, I guess. That's why I use it. I insured my collection just to have some sort of book value. And but other than that, it might be kind of useless to know, because I don't know if anybody's actually going to walk in and pay you that. Here's another point of interest that I think some people kind of forget about is what you paid initially. And so I was really lucky. I got into records when nobody was into records. And I started buying records when I was in high school in the 90s. And people were literally throwing them out. They were just dumping collections. And I was like, oh, thank you very much. I'll take that. And I was buying them for $1 a piece. And trying out and experimenting with bands that I didn't know just based on the cover of the record, because it was $1. And I didn't have the money for CDs. It was just, they were $25 at that time, and it was a lot easier to go and find records at a yard sale and things like that. So it was a bit of a golden age to get into vinyl. And it's where I built up the bulk of my collection. And in fact, I've sold large chunks of my collection from various times, and knowing that even though I had good stuff and I was selling it, I knew I got into it for next to nothing. So any profit was profit. And it'll be the same with this collection behind me. I maybe have $5,000 to $7,000 invested in this, maybe. That might be high. And when you go to downsize, each time I do downsize a chunk of the collection or decide to sell off or trade or something, I know what I've got into it is far less than what the market value is now of it. So even if I sold my collection and I got $15,000 for it, I would probably have doubled. So things like that are kind of worthwhile keeping in mind. Now, obviously, I'm not going to sell it for that, but it's always there, and you know that you're into it for the right price, and I didn't go overboard for the most part. Some items I've paid up for, but for a lot of these records, they were ones that I kind of just stumbled upon at flea markets and yard sales and things like that, and it just it kind of was things that I saw value in at that time when a lot of other people didn't, and I just liked it for, as I said before, the historical sort of connection to it. So it resonated with me at a young age, and it still does. And to me, it's an important kind of connection to physical media to listen to. One of the last things I'm going to mention today about, if you're thinking of investing in records and thinking of holding them long term for financial payoff down the road, definitely take a look at other collectible markets and see what they're doing and how they're trending. And there's one thing that I've noticed across the board in all areas of collectibles, and that is it is heavily driven by people that are now 50 and up. And it's a lot of nostalgic connection and things like that. And these people that are in this age group, we've got maybe 15, 20 years longer with this age group, where the collectible market might have some relevance. After that, I'm not sure. And the reason I say that is a lot of people under, say, my age, I'm 45, people under my age, for the most part, could care less about collecting almost anything. And if they do have a record collection, it's probably not going to be huge, and it's probably going to be a lot of modern artists and things like that. And I don't know if there's going to be a huge market for any type of collectible, whether so in the music side of things, like I look at vintage guitars as well. Vintage guitars are so expensive, and the generation that would be coming next, really, if they have interest in it, can't afford it. But probably they don't have a lot of interest in it. They'd rather a new instrument anyway. And so I think the same thing will happen with records. I think the same thing will happen with a lot of vintage items, that it's, as we get further and further out from the bands that are relevant to this generation and the ones that came before it, you're going to see less and less value in their items. So let me explain this a little more. Here's an example of a record that's been highly collectible for years and years and years, and this is Elvis's debut record, and this is the RCA dog. Here's an example of definitely an artist that was one of the most important of all time, heavily collectible, millions of fans worldwide, and nowadays the price of Elvis records is going down and down and down and down. And that is because the younger generations aren't as connected with this. And the people that were around when this happened remember it and are nostalgic for that period and kind of connect with it. For younger folks, for the most part, I'm generalizing here, kind of don't have any connection to Elvis and what he was or what he did. And this record is going to get less and less valuable as time goes on, just because people are going to get further and further removed from this era. And it just is, it's part of history. It's part of a thing that happened and it's had its moment, and now as we move forward, it's going to be less and less relevant. And this is with a major artist like Elvis. Imagine with an artist such as the Moody Blues, Elton John, bands that were big in their time are going to be less and less important and even sought out to be listened to as the years move forward. So if we go another 15, 20 years out from now, are any of these artists' records going to be collectible or valuable? I mean, they're really not now. So I see that trend continuing, and I see, even the major bands, Beatles, Stones, you're starting to see it with those two already. Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd are holding on a little more. They've got a little bit more relevance with younger generations, but as time goes on, it's going to get less and less, and things will get more removed, and I think these records are going to be worth less, and when there's less demand for something, price of that goes down, and that's, I think, what's going to happen with all areas of collectibles. So something to be conscious of and something to consider if you're thinking of investing in vinyl long term. So that's some thoughts on if you're thinking of vinyl as an investment, some reasons I would sort of maybe say, I don't know. And some people will say, oh, you know what, Mike, it's about the music. I don't care. I'm never going to get rid of my records. Well, then why are they sleeved? Why do we put them in these sleeves if we don't care about the value? Why do we sort them and protect them the way we do and store them climately controlled and all this other things? If we don't think we care about the financial end of it, then why are we working so hard to protect it? Like it'd be like collecting, rocks or something. Like what, if they're that's a poor example, I guess, but if you were to collect something that had no value at all, would you be going to all this trouble to protect it and look after it? And so I don't think it's exactly about the music. There's a ton of other ways to listen to the music that are a lot more convenient and cheaper and easier, quite frankly, than vinyl. Yes, we like the sound of vinyl. We like the tactile kind of that you can hold a record in your hand, that sort of thing. And we like the historical connection and nostalgic connection we have to vinyl. But there's a million other ways to listen to music that is much easier, or at least 3 or 4. So that would be, I think some of it is also the collectability. And I think for vinyl collectors like myself, I enjoy collecting them as if they were, something not even music related in a way. I think I collect them the way I would collect sports cards or stamps or comic books or something else. You collect, holes in your collection that you're trying to fill and kind of complete and things like that. And you look for obscure records like this that are hard to find, that are sought after, that are rare. And, some of the enjoyment is finding that. And quite frankly, cheap records don't do that. So, you try to collect records that have some value and things like that if you're a true collector. If you're just in it for the music, then, as I say, take the sleeves off them. Who cares if you get a bit of ring wear on them, and just enjoy your records and, party on, Wayne. It's all good. But I think for a lot of collectors out there, you're collecting with the idea that down the road they're going to have some value, that somebody might be able to use them, or you're preserving the collection for somebody else, something like that. But inevitably, it's got to be kind of one or the other. And I think if you're taking the time to look after them and preserve them and things like that, some element in your thinking must be they have to have some value. They have to be worth something. And I'm just sort of this video is more just a caution to say, it might not be worth what you think it is. You might not get what you think you're going to get. The next person with your collection, if something happens to you, might not even care about them. And there has to be a bit of a plan for exit on some of this stuff. If you've got large amounts of records that are sitting around, somebody is going to have to deal with it. So there's a little bit of information I have gathered over the years as a record collector, and I do think we're in a bit of a time right now where things are going to level off and prices are going to come down. I think they have to. And I also think all of a sudden there is going to be a load of records for sale from people getting out. And I think there's a shelf life to this. So I wouldn't collect records as an investment. I would collect records because you really enjoy it and you like listening to them and it's something that brings you happiness. But don't look at it as a retirement plan. That's my 2 cents on this. And for most collectibles, really, it's nice if you can sell some things off and make some money. And I know people who have done really well with that. And somebody I know actually sold their record collection and toured the Orient Express with the money off of it. So I know it's possible. Not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying for the average guy, there's a lot of stuff in your collection that might not be worth what you think it is, and the value fluctuates all the time. So it can be really challenging to move along. So I think just be cautious and enjoy the hobby for what it is. Enjoy collecting records, have fun with it, but maybe don't collect it because you think you're going to get rich off of it. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you're a big fan of rock and roll and you like records, guitars, and stories about rock and roll, be sure to give us a like and subscribe and ring that bell. It helps us to grow the channel and keep more stuff coming. Thanks a lot.